Hi, this is Michael Whitaker. This is my fourth video that goes along with my 21 posts that I'm doing regarding my thoughts that went behind 21 of my photo images. The attention for this post is on a photograph I entitled Bach, and I'll explain later the reason I selected that name. I encountered this billboard in 1997 in the Czech Republic, in Prague. I did not speak the Czech language, so I could not read it, and I had no idea what the meaning or the purpose of this billboard was. I mentioned in an earlier post that I did a documentary project at the Prague Zoo that summer. And I was actually walking back to my room from the Prague Zoo when I encountered this billboard. Like I said, I had no idea what it meant. But I noticed on the billboard were 21 male images, all nude, full frontal nudity. The thing that caught my attention first was that of the smaller people, who I later learned were boys, the penis had been removed. I could not imagine why. Literally, my mind was racing about why would somebody remove the penis or remove a penis from this billboard. And my thoughts were just running crazy. It's not like you show up at home and go, look what I brought you today from the billboard downtown. But I really didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand what the situation was, and I was by myself. So it occurred to me, or I decided, that I wanted to photograph this billboard. I prefer to have people in my photographs. From my perspective, just for my photography, from my perspective, a person in the image enhances what I'm trying to say with the photograph. So I was there all along without a translator, and I decided to photograph this billboard, but I wanted a person in it. So I stood there watching people go by. Several people passed by between me and the billboard, between my camera and the billboard, but all sort of had limited interest to me. I couldn't really fit together how that person or those persons in the image would enhance the image. Then after about 15 minutes, the lady in this photograph is approaching the billboard. I can see her coming. And I immediately notice that her hair reminds me of the hair on the Bach figures on the billboard. So I thought, this lady's great. I then noticed the Mickey Mouse on her left leg, and I thought, that's even better. So I waited for the lady to approach, much as when I've photographed bullfights in the past. When I photographed bullfights, I watched the entire bullfight through my camera. I never put the camera down. When I was photographing or capturing this image, I never put my camera down. So if this lady had seen me, and I'm not sure she did see me, she would have known that I was looking through the camera the whole time and not selecting her. So when she moved into my frame, when she moved into my plane, my field of view, I snapped 3 images, and she was gone, and I left. I think the first thing I did was found a friend who was from the Czech Republic, and asked him, we found the billboard and done the location, and asked him, what is this billboard about? He provided an explanation. He explained that when the Soviet Union began controlling Czechoslovakia, which it was called then, in 1969, people made deliberate decisions to have fewer children or to have no children at all. And that makes sense. At the time of this, I'm recording this video, Russia has occupied Ukraine. And I'm sure there's a lot of parents in Ukraine who aren't thinking about having additional children in their families during this current conflict. So I can understand why people in the Czech Republic in 1968 would say, this is just not a great time to be having children. The problem was, after the Velvet Revolution in 1989, when the Soviets left, the trend of not having children or having fewer children continued. And with any country, with any nation, when you're not producing new citizens through natural processes, your population begins to decrease. So the bureau that published this billboard wanted to send a message to the public that you should be having more children. They used this image of Bach to convey that message. The reason they chose Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, the reason they chose Bach was that he fathered 20 children. That's the reason on this billboard there are 20 little Bachs. Well, the irony of this is that Bach did have 20 children, but they were not all males. If I remember correctly, there were 9 females and 11 males. The thing I know for sure is that of Bach's 20 children, only 10 survived to adulthood. So I thought it was a little ironic that they chose a father with 20 children, half of which did not survive to adulthood. But anyway, they chose Bach for this billboard. And the message was, Bach's a great example. He had 20 children. Let's follow Bach's example. I'm going to show you the full billboard in another image. Prague, like everywhere else, has different parts of the city. This billboard was in the Smíchov area of Prague. And as you can see, it's up above the ground. So no one's going to cut anything off of this particular image. So if you look at this whole billboard, you can see, if you read Czech, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's these 2 lines. And I use Google Translate to translate for this slide. And the top line basically says, stop worrying. Second line says, take an example from Bach. And then out here on the right side above the heads of the little box, it says 20 children. And then across the bottom it says, statistically, the office warns, I don't know what office, the office warns there are 0.96 children per one family in the Czech Republic. So they're not even averaging 1 child per family at this point in Czech history. So this billboard is to encourage other people, or to encourage its citizens to have more children. Just a quick note about this particular image. I went there and found this image above the ground where no one could reach it. But I also like the surrounding, like this big white arrow. There's also a phone number here that I cut out, and I don't know what the purpose of the phone number was. But I waited for this lady holding her umbrella. It was not raining at the moment. This lady holding an umbrella. When she got to the point where the arrow was pointing at her, I captured this image. I just saw a strange, weird bit of humor in a lady walking under a billboard with 21 naked men on it, that she would need an umbrella over her head. But that's another whole story. So back to the original image here, the image that's the focus here. I guess a quick note, I should mention why I entitled this particular photo, Bach. I was a big fan of the American TV series MASH. During the first season of MASH, episode 14 concerned Hawkeye, one of the main characters, instructing Radar, another one of the younger characters, who was very naive. He was supposed to be from from Iowa, and was very unskilled in interpersonal interactions. So Hawkeye was explaining to Radar how to respond to this lady who knew a lot about classical music. And Hawkeye told him, whenever she mentions Johann Sebastian Bach, all you have to do is go, ah, Bach. And they go through that several times with Radar practicing saying, ah, Bach. Well, in my strange mind, when I first encountered this billboard, I immediately recognized Bach's image on this billboard. And my first thought was from that MASH episode. In my mind, I said, ah, Bach. So I entitled this particular photo, I, Bach. This is not from a documentary project. It's from a fine art project entitled Restricted Attention, which I'm not sure I'll talk about again, but it's a project where I focus on the issue that people just don't see what's going on around them. I don't believe this lady ever saw me. And my Czech friend said she probably did never see you, because under Soviet rule, people learned to look straight ahead and to not look at anything going on. So the picture of this lady, the photo of this lady, is included in my restricted attention project. One final comment. For 6 years in a row, my good friend Tom Ritchie, who is a painter, and I had a joint show in Baltimore for 6 years in a row. And we did something clever every year to kind of have a different theme. The next to the last year that we did our joint show, we decided to entitle or to name the exhibition, excuse me, What's Your Story? And what we did is set up a little table or platform in front of each of my photographs and in front of each of Tom's paintings, and we invited people to tell us what they see. One of my favorite comments I use a lot about my photos is, do you see what I see? So I love the idea of putting these books out and asking people to write what they saw. What's your story? What story do you see in this image? This photograph was in that show in Baltimore, and I love the comments that I got. Fascinating what people wrote. Many responses regarding the image of Mickey Mouse. You know, when I first saw Mickey Mouse on the left leg of this lady, my first thought was he was smiling and laughing at me and saying, do you see what I see? Because you'll never see this in the United States, and you would never see this picture, this billboard in the United States. Americans have a thing about nudity, and we tend not to want to say the P word when we refer to penis. Don't know why, it's just the reality. So some of the stories that people wrote, excuse me, about this photograph related directly to Mickey Mouse and what Mickey Mouse was thinking and that sort of thing. So I just was so glad that I had waited for this lady and that Mickey was in this image. I did wait for the lady for 15 minutes. I wasn't waiting for her. I was waiting for someone that caught my attention to come by. I've often been asked, how long would I have stood there waiting? And my response was probably not much longer. The 15 minutes was really starting to stretch out. So the point I make in the post is that this billboard captured my attention. And then I was patient and waited for the right moment to capture this image. We'll talk about it later. I'm a big fan of Henri Cartier-Bresson. I believe very strongly in his concept of the decisive moment. So to me, in a way, this photo also represents the use of Cartier-Bresson's notion of the decisive moment. I can't really think of anything else to tell. I did put in the post that I never interacted with this lady. This is sort of my version of street photography, and I will show you on additional images that I consider street photography, during which I never interacted fully with the subject of the photograph. To me, this is just a fun photograph. I really enjoyed exhibiting it. I still get lots of comments about it when people see it. If you have questions, please write them in the comments section, either on Facebook or LinkedIn. As always, I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your interest in what kind of thoughts went on in my head when I captured these images. I hope to stimulate thoughts in your head to notice what's going on in your head when you're capturing images. So this was number 4 of 21. Number 5 will be in a couple of days. Thank you very much. Goodbye.